Vector, how the mighty have fallen. Now, in a previous video, like 4 or 5 days ago now, I showed or went through all of the top tier weapons that we have after Project Resolve, and there was a lot of confusion, a lot of people asking why 1, Vector, 2, specifically Dark Winter, weren't on the list. Now, despite the fact that this title was going to be called like The Mighty Have Fallen, Vector, blah, this actually has nothing to do with the Vector being bad. Okay, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're saying Vector is bad. No, Vector hasn't changed at all. But since before Project Resolved and now after Project Resolved, the Vector quite simply hasn't changed. And it served its purpose throughout years worth of content. Due to the fact that it hasn't changed, like I said, it's clearly still going to be good. The problem is now we simply have weapons that can do the exact same thing that Vector can do, but have more bullets in the magazine, or a slight increase in sustained DPS but have equal burst DPS, or in some cases more burst DPS but slightly less sustained, or in one case more burst as well as sustained, which in short, quite simply, the Vector is still very, very good, but we now just have better weapons. That's quite simply it. So I'm going to be going over that point in just a little bit more detail, just so that you can hopefully understand why Vector isn't technically on the list. Yes, Vector is still a good weapon. I still use it, mostly just because I can't really be bothered updating all of my builds with the weapons that are slightly better now from Project Resolve to get the extra 1 or 2%. They've served me well for years. They will continue to serve me well unless there's like a huge rebalance. So there's no point really, at least for me, really going for it, considering as well I've invested expertise into some of my vectors. So if we now look at this in terms of just base value stats, as you can see, the CMG Banshee is just over the top of a Vector, including as well just the MP7. Like in terms of base value stats, DPS as well as sustained overall magazine damage, they're all realistically beating the Vector. The Vector really can't compete anymore, and as some of you might be able to tell from some of my previous work, when it comes to base value stats, this basically translates completely with full builds. But just to show, this is the build I'm going to be utilizing essentially: Cheska, Grupo, 4-piece Hunter's Fury. The attachments are the same. This gives all of the SMGs essentially 53% crit chance and 178% crit damage. The MP7 will drop by 5% in crit damage due to attachments, but still, these are the values that essentially come out. I have the Grudge operating with its buff active, Dark Winter with Perfect Killer active, and I've also got the SBR 9mm because a lot of people were saying that this is still going to be a very powerful weapon. It actually does kind of fall short. Now, the reason why, typically speaking, the Grudge is actually going to be the more powerful option is simply because of now how you can build it. That's an extra 18% critical hit chance that you don't necessarily have to spec for. Whereas with the others, if you wanted to, you could increase that crit chance, but you're going to decrease the overall crit damage. Sure, this would be a better way to go that potentially could keep up. However, essentially with the Grudge, you don't actually need that Cheska piece, which means you could opt in for something else if you really wanted, which would actually allow you greater affordability. The bottom option now is doing 4.3% more than the top one, and all it is we've removed the Cheska piece because we technically don't need it, and we've now got a Sokolov piece in, which is going to be more damage. We're still able to hit our max critical hit chance, still a hefty amount of critical hit damage, and we've got another 10% SMG damage. This is going to be very, very beneficial down the road. Now, if I adjust the crit chance to show both the vectors at 59, obviously this does mean they're going to drop 5% in critical hit damage. You should see that Dark Winter is technically doing more, as well as the SBR 9mm. But what you're not seeing is uptime. Problem with Killer is it has to, 1, be a kill, 2, just to be a kill with a critical hit. We only have a 59% crit chance, so what we now have to do is factor in the rate in which we're critting and the hope that that would now be a critical shot, which is going to diminish that overall output. And then with the SBR 9mm, I'm showing this with Strained. Strained takes 2.5 seconds to fully stack up, which is 1200 RPM. the RPM of the SBR 9mm is 1200, which means we're not getting the full stack of strain. We're actually only getting 4 stacks worth, essentially. So if we then factor those in, we now get this, which again puts the Grudge back on top, even not including the variant with Sokolov instead of Cheska. So yeah, essentially it's always going to be up to you how you want to play. There isn't a huge difference. It's not like something I would really cry about or moan about. Just the fact of the matter is the Vector, I wouldn't say it's fallen from grace. It's more just the Grudge, or just the Banshee in general, is just performing higher at this point. Anyway, that is just about going to cover it for this video. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.